Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. It is so great to be along with you today. Listen, we got big news to talk about. That is the situation with the drones, or is it big news? See, I think the secrecy surrounding the drones, the secrecy behind President Trump's comments about the drones, how vague the statement was that the FAA approved these drones and that they're not our enemies. Well, then what are they? See, the statement doesn't answer a lot of questions. And so I want to get to the bottom of what it is. And I believe those drones, at least some of them, were searching for this radioactive material that we know went missing months ago. And I believe many of these drones were mapping New Jersey and the East Coast to look at what the radioactivity levels were, and then to continue to map the area to see if there's any change, to see if they can spot where this radioactive material is. And God forbid it could be used to build a dirty bomb. We didn't get any of that from the administration, but I believe President Trump is giving us the information that he promised to give us. And that is whose drones are they? He has confirmed to us that we know who they are. They've been used for research and other reasons. And I'll play Karoline Leavitt's comments. And by the way, she did an absolutely fabulous job yesterday. An A+ rating from me on her first press conference as press secretary. She knocked it out of the park. But I'm going to play this clip. And I think the details are in the words that she uses, which is President Trump's almost telling us what it is without fully telling us what it is. And I believe there are those inside government, including the deep state, that wants us, that want to protect us from panic. That if they told us there's radioactive material on the loose and they're worried there's a dirty bomb out there, that they'd get widespread panic in New Jersey. Now, that panic may be warranted. It may not be. But in the end, it should really be up to me. I'm not necessarily sure I buy all of it, that the FAA always knew what these drones were, and I'm not sure this goes for all of the drones. You had drones buzzing Langley. Now, were those FAA approved? Come on. So this is Karoline Leavitt.
I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
That may be the most important part about the drones. This was not the enemy, okay? And if President Trump says it, I believe him. But the secret's in the details. Research and other reasons. Well, what was the research and what are the other reasons? We're going to get into that on the program today. But before we do, let me tell you about my friends over at Energized Health. You know, I feel like I am in some of the best shape of my life, and I owe it to intercellular hydration and what the Energized Health program has done for me. This is a total mind, body, soul program, and it's for people of any age. Look, I lost 15 pounds, and I did it in just a couple of weeks, okay? Then I've kept it off, and I've remained steady now for, I think we're probably going on 6 months or so. So this is a program that works for me as a life-changing event, getting my hydration at a cellular level. And that's the most important part of all of this. Just pounding water isn't going to do it. They have the science to back up the program. Go to energizedhealth.com/grant, energizedhealth.com/grant. All the help there, daily videos. You've got personal coaching sessions. You've got weekly Zoom calls. You've got the programs and books. You've got electronic equipment that helps you monitor and measure your progress. So there's no guesswork in all of this. And, of course, recipes and everything you need to be successful. They've got a 99.1% success rate for people of all ages and women, too. Give this a try, all right? EnergizedHealth.com/grant. EnergizedHealth.com/grant. I promise you, you will not regret it. All right. So Karoline Leavitt says research and other purposes.
Study The drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons.
Research and various other reasons. So now the question becomes, what is the research? What is the other reason? And again, I believe this all comes back to radioactive material. Now, here's the other question. You had drones in Virginia. You had drones in other states. Were those related to the FAA? And if the FAA knew and authorized these drones, why did the Biden administration just come out and tell us these drones were authorized by the FAA? They did not tell us that. And in fact, you had the governor of New Jersey not told about what these drones were. And if they knew they were authorized by the FAA, wouldn't you want to tell law enforcement that this is a law enforcement officer from New Jersey talking about he would have liked to have known?
It's a little bit disappointing and concerning still at the same time. I mean, had they just put that simple statement out, we wouldn't have wasted so many resources. It's disappointing that we had to have the Department of Homeland Security from D.C. in here with special equipment. It's disappointing that the FBI had to waste all their man hours on a tip line for hundreds and hundreds of phone calls.
Wait, so you see this? If the FAA authorized the drones, they wouldn't tell the FBI? And what does that say about the FBI that they don't make a phone call to the FAA? Right? I mean, you've got FBI agents manning tip lines and running down leads. This is insanity. This is how bad government runs. And so I hope there's relief with President Trump in office, but he can't turn around this bureaucracy by himself. This is literally crazy to listen to this. All of the resources that were put to this, and the FAA knew it all along.
Disappointed on the local and county level here, where we had to do the same thing, wasting our resources and putting our residents in fear and an apprehensive state. All that combined, I mean, one simple statement from the FAA or the federal government, and I want to thank President Trump for at least putting it out there. Still, there's more questions. I mean, we had these episodes in Northern Virginia and the state of New Jersey. We got to get better at this. I'm going to continue pushing Congress, and my Congressman Chris Smith has done a great job in pushing it for hearings on this. But let's bring the FAA in and say, why didn't they notify local state officials so that we didn't waste all these resources? That's really the primary thing here is we need.
So I agree. I mean, here we go again with more congressional hearings. I'm getting sick of congressional hearings. They usually don't get anywhere. Nobody's ever held accountable. Yeah, we get a few answers, but normally we don't get very many. And so the answer is hold more hearings. What I need is President Trump to direct the leaders of his agencies to figure out why they're not talking to each other. We got to get Kash Patel into the FBI, make sure that happens. And then the big question becomes, okay, so the FAA says there are drones. What was the research about? Where is this radioactive material? Is there a dirty bomb on the loose? Is that a possibility? Do you need the public's help? Should we be looking for something? Should we have our eyes peeled for something? Does law enforcement and all the resources they use to figure out what the drones are, maybe they should have been looking for a dirty bomb?
Better communication, we need better deconfliction, and we need transparency when it comes to drone operations in the future.
But Sheriff, I'm going to have to believe that it assuages some of your concerns, learning that it was FAA approved. It's not the enemy, but you don't seem completely satisfied with this explanation.
No, I do think that there has to be a change in the law and procedures. I said this all along. We need better communication, particularly when there's going to be these operations, at least with the state police, regional intelligence centers in each state, so that they're aware and they can notify local law enforcement on notifications to say, hey, we do have some type of operation going. I mean, that's all the people in New Jersey wanted, right? If they told us it was a military exercise, if they told us it was research exercise, that's all well and good. We would have went about our business, but we wasted a lot of law enforcement resources on multiple levels trying to track these things down and get the federal government involved. And I think the Biden administration was a little disingenuous in not coming forward with a simple statement that said we're doing some research, and that would have put a lot to bed for.
Yeah. So right now I put all the blame on the Biden administration. Because I think if you had President Trump in office and they're telling him, hey, we don't know what they are, he'd be literally drilling down. and saying at the time, I need an answer and I need it now. We need to tell the American people. Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel. His people were asleep at the wheel, and letting the FAA not communicate. Now, when you think about the non-communication, we're in 2025. 9/11 happened 24 years ago. That to me is just unbelievable that it's that long ago. 24 years ago, do you know what the main problem was for emergency responders on 9/11? A lack of communication between responding agencies, whether they were local agencies, federal agencies. There was no ability for them to communicate with each other. The command post was scattered. There was all kinds of issues. Here we are, nearly 25 years later, and we still don't have federal agencies talking with each other. That kind of thing is disheartening. So Chris Cuomo, who I'm still very, very skeptical of, was on talking about this last night, and he brought a guy named Jeremy Corbell on. Take a listen.
I was disappointed today, and that happens very rarely. I thought that they were going to say some things about what's going on and the different kinds of drones and the new reality and what has to change, and we got none of it. Was I just wrong in my expectation, or are we still waiting for the truth?
Yeah, I mean, just logically, good to see you. Just logically, that explanation does not make any sense. You know, did the FAA authorize the ones that buzzed Langley for 17 nights in a row, or the untrackable drones that infiltrated 3 U.S. and UK air bases for weeks? You know, why were the drones not affected by anti-drone technology? Did the FAA issue flight restrictions if they authorized this? If these were approved tests, why did the FAA, DOD, FBI, or anybody else, why didn't they tell us that for months? It's an absolute whitewash. It's sad to hear. I was disappointed we didn't get any true answers this time.
No, the only answer we got was that the drones in the sky didn't pose a threat to the public. We didn't get an answer of what does pose a threat to the public. Something did. They were up there for some reason. I mean, they aren't just research. Oh, let's see how the drones. We know how to fly drones in America. Heck, that's on the battlefield overseas. We fly drones from Las Vegas, Nevada, that are literally taking out terrorists in the Middle East. We know how to fly drones. So again, a lot of questions remain through all of this. So I think to quote Ratchet in the Rumble channel, the story is that there's more to the story. And that's what I take away from this. And I think President Trump's hands are tied in some respects as to what's going on here. My buddy Tim Burchett talked about UFOs. This is going back a little bit, but it all plays in together because President Trump has said he's going to release the UFO files as well as the MLK files, the RFK files, and the JFK files.
What is your message to Trump tonight?
Disclosure. America deserves to know the facts, and I believe we are not alone. I don't know at what point. I think in God's great universe, I don't believe we're the greatest thing he's ever created. I think that's very arrogant on our part. And President Trump has confided that, in fact, he will be releasing some of these, and I plan to have that conversation again with him very soon, and I would like to see that.
I would like to see it too. President Trump says he's going to declassify the UFO files. Again, we get back to the same comment I made about the Martin Luther King files and the John F. Kennedy files. I don't trust those inside the CIA and the FBI to release everything. We don't know what we don't know exists. So how do we mandate it gets released? We don't know what to ask for because we don't know if it's there. People think, oh, your freedom of information request, they go through the computers, they just send you everything. That's not how it works. There is somebody in there looking over this stuff and is going to say, nope, the American public can't see that. They don't want President Trump to see it. This is why, again, John Ratcliffe is heading up the CIA. I believe he will do his best to get to the bottom of it, but there's no guarantees we're going to get everything out of this. I mean, there just really isn't. There's just no guarantees that can happen. All right. John Fetterman goes on The View. He's got some choice words for the ladies, I call them ladies, the cackling hens of The View. We will play that for you here in just a moment. But before we do that, today I got notification that I got money direct deposited into my checking account from my investment with NFN8, which the website is get21now.com. Every month, like clockwork, I get this direct deposit into my account. I call it mailbox money. I don't have to do anything. I sit back and I collect my 21% annualized interest paid out monthly, thanks to the folks at NFN8, get21now.com. So you might say, how are they doing this? Well, here's what they do. They take money and from you and they use it to mine Bitcoin. And they mine this Bitcoin and they sell it the next day on the open market. They're not dealing with the big fluctuations. You aren't dealing with the big fluctuations. You lock in to up to 21%, depending on the deal you cut with them. You lock into that and they pay it to you, contractually guaranteed. So this is what I'm doing with get21now.com. I would urge you to look at it as well. They're great people. Corey, the guy who runs the operation, will talk to you directly on the phone. He's lived up to every promise he's made to me. So again, get21now.com. You tell me where you can contractually sign a contract to get 21% annualized interest. Tell me where. I don't know. If there's another place, I'll do that one too. But this one I know is working for me. And so I urge you to talk to them. How much money is right for you? Talk to them about it. But call them back. If you sign up, call them back. A lot of response to this offer. And they're great guys. Get21now.com. Learn about what they're doing there. Give them a call. Sign up. They'll call you back. Answer their call or call them back. And don't miss out on this great opportunity. Get21now.com. All right. John Fetterman on The View. The cackling hens over there don't know what to do with this man because this guy's had a transformation. Now, I think part of his transformation is he sees President Trump won Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is turning into a red state finally. It should have been a red state a long time ago, but it's finally turning into a red state. He knows that if he wants to get reelected again, he's got to move to the center. Now, maybe he's always been there, and when he took over as senator, he had all those mental issues and the stroke or whatever he was dealing with was not great. But he's making a transformation to common sense. I don't agree with him on everything, but at least he's willing to listen to us and take a measured view of the things we believe.
I did get a lot of criticism for it from some people who thought you going to Mar-a-Lago gives cover to Trump by creating the solution that he's amenable to working with Democrats. I was very supportive of when people like Mitt Romney and Rob Portman worked with Joe Biden. So I understand the need for bipartisanship. I didn't love the optics of you going to Mar-a-Lago. He was going to, which is his palace. He was going to be in Washington a week later. But what was your goal? And do you feel ultimately you were successful?
Well, here's what happened. I was being lazy on the couch like Friday night, and my team reached out saying, hey, and I don't know if this is like a trolling or a hoax, but they extended an invitation. You know, what do you think? I'm like, well, I mean, if they're playing it straight, then I think it's pretty reasonable to have a conversation, you know, inviting me to engage, and I visited it. So maybe some people would be critical of that, but, you know, for me, engaging the president, I think when you're in this business, I mean, that's part of the job.
So here's a question I want all of you to answer me honestly. If you're in a red state like I am, I'm in Texas, and your senator gets called in to go talk to Joe Biden. If Ted Cruz gets called by Joe Biden, hey, I'd like to meet with you in the Oval Office. You say no? Of course not. I would want Ted Cruz to go voice his concerns to the guy who called himself at the time the commander-in-chief. I believe he was an illegitimate president. But I'd still say, you know what? He's got the office. Go talk to him. The left freaks out. They don't want to talk, folks. They don't want to engage with us because they know they lose every time, and they lose on the truth and they lose on the Constitution. So when you lose on those fronts, you don't want to engage. I give it to Fetterman for at least engaging and going and talking to President Trump. And I certainly applaud President Trump for trying to engage with leftists like John Fetterman. And he is a leftist. albeit a little bit more common sense minded than most.
Anymore you would criticize Governor Newsom, that received the president there after the fires in California. They are going to find a way to work together. I mean, that's where we are. And I hope maybe you are watching are tired of just like the venom and the hate. And it's like, I'd like more bipartisan kinds of things. And you are going to agree with things and you're going to disagree on things. And I'm going to pick my fights. And I'm not going to, and I've chosen not to add to the cheap heat online or go after those kinds of things. I've never found that helpful. And if those kinds of things were helpful, we would be in a different situation. We'd be the ones making those kinds of decisions with the new administration, with then Vice President Harris.
Yeah. Well, Senator, Trump's pardoning of roughly.
So it's interesting. They glaze over that. They don't want to even push him on that at all. But you notice what he said. If the left would have been more reasonable about things, maybe they would have won the election. Now, I disagree with that. I don't think there was any chance a Democrat was winning this election after what they did with us. So what he's asking for was a fundamental shift from what the last 4 years was. We weren't ever going to get that from Joe Biden. So it's not even a worry. But he did call into question what the Biden administration did and the reason why they lost. Well, the cackling hens on The View don't want to hear that. So what do they do when you don't hear what you want to hear from a Democrat like John Fetterman? Well, you just bring up January 6th, right? This is what the left, they're still focused on this, by the way. Here's some of that.
Well, Senator, Trump's pardoning of roughly 1,500 January 6th rioters on his first day back in office is still reverberating. And when we last spoke with you in December, you were critical of Joe Biden having just pardoned his son, Hunter. So although President Trump ran on doing this, there was a discrepancy, and a lot of people in his inner circle said he wouldn't do it for violent offenders. So there was some surprise in what he ended up doing.
Of course not. I'm on record criticizing going after Hunter Biden. And I also agreed that the trial in this city, in New York, was politically motivated, that wouldn't otherwise have been prosecuted if it was someone else. And I've been very front and center in pardons. I chaired that process in Pennsylvania. I was all about delivering second chances, and I was very proud of that. And I think that's really the cornerstone of criminal justice reform is.
So he's on both sides of this because he knows his party's going to go apoplectic if he comes out and says, yes, the J6er should have been pardoned. And I was all for the blanket pardon. Okay. All for it. So he walks this fine line here. And I will tell you, I never thought I talked this way about John Fetterman. I was a huge critic of his when he took over in the Senate. He couldn't even function. He was not in a physically fit state to be a United States senator. Something clicked in him along the way that makes him a tolerable Democrat for me. There are not very many of them. I interviewed a Chicago alderman who's a Democrat. It's been critical of Mayor Johnson. We're going to talk about him in a little while. But this is a Democrat. And he was being common sense minded about getting illegals out of the city. There's not very many of these types of Democrats out there today. So for John Fetterman, I'll embrace him as someone at least you could try to work with.
If you are following the rules and you've paid your debt, I do believe you do. I do believe there needs to be a path for redemption. And this process, whether Joe Biden or whether President Trump, I don't agree with many of those pardons, especially on the J6 ones. And I've called that out. I've been on record saying that that's just not true. If you're going to abuse the process, somebody that's been very committed as part of that, has made that part of my career. I think it's sad because it's been politicized. And I think, if anything, that might have set some things back because people assume now, depending on what team's in office, those are the people that get some redemption.
So politicized. We know the J6 trials were politicized. We know the trials against President Trump were politicized. This is why President Trump has fired, 12 plus DOJ prosecutors that went after him. How are they going to carry out a conservative MAGA agenda if their whole career, end of their career, was focused on getting Trump? I'll let you hear a little bit more of Fetterman because he's got these cackling hens on The View all befuddled. They don't know what to do with him. As Ratchet says, the Senate doesn't know what to do with Fetterman either. I don't think anybody does. I wish he would put a suit on, though. Maybe not for the View interview, but he went to the inauguration in this same hoodie and gym shorts to the inauguration of a sitting president. I mean, I guess some people might find this endearing. I think you got to show a little bit of respect. But here I am in a gym shirt doing my podcast.
I just for clarification, did you mean that the 34-count case in which Donald Trump was found guilty of various financial crimes was politically motivated here in New York?
I found that when the judicial system gets weaponized and targeted political enemies for political gain, I think that's inappropriate, and I think that degrades our collective trust in this a very important institution, whether that's on a Democratic going after a Republican or a Republican going after a Democratic one. And I like to think I call it strikes and balls because the judicial system has to remain impartial. I mean, that's really the cornerstone of our society.
Would that be the way that things worked? Wouldn't that be great if that's the way that things actually worked?
What, Whoopi? Wouldn't that be great if that's the way things worked? You're the one who's been screaming and yelling from the top of your stupid mountain there over at ABC, Whoopi, that President Trump should be sent to jail, that he should be impeached, that he should be charged with an insurrection. What do you mean, Whoopi? Wouldn't that be great? You're the one pushing Democrats to act the way they do in the United States Congress and in our judicial system. What have we weaponized against Joe Biden? We investigate Hunter Biden for crimes he admitted to. Remember, President Trump has never admitted to doing anything wrong. Why? Because he didn't do anything wrong. Hunter Biden admits to crimes. Why? Because he committed the crimes. Nobody wants to see the difference here. One's a criminal, one's not. So I'm sorry your son committed all these crimes at your behalf, Joe Biden. All right, so now you've got these blanket pardons that Joe Biden offered for 6 of his family members. Why? Why do they go through December 24th? December of 2024. I'll tell you why these pardons go through December of 2024. Because Joe Biden, in my opinion, and Peter Schweitzer of the Government Accountability Institute's opinion, Seamus Bruner of the Government Accountability Institute's opinion, Joe Biden cut a deal, a financial deal to step down and get out of the way and give up the presidency. I promise you, he profited off of this. Joe Biden has always found a way to make money off of situations where there's a lot of power and money at stake. And let me tell you something, who's going to run for the presidency? You better believe power and money is at stake. Joe Biden profited off of this. This is my opinion, and it is the opinion of others. That's why he pardoned those people all the way through December of 2024, because they ran the money through the LLCs. Every single one of those people was connected to the LLCs. Now, is that political persecution on my part? No. It's calling out what I see. What do? They come up with nonsensical Russian collusion nonsense. They make up evidence. You've got prosecutors inside the DOJ that concocted evidence, that lied in subpoenas for search warrants. It's not the America I want to live in, and thankfully President Trump is changing it. So, as you look at this now, and let me there's these J6 prosecutors that have been fired. Okay, this is one of them. This is the new media tour, by the way, that they're going to interview all of these DOJ attorneys who went after President Trump and say, "Oh, what a tragedy it is that you got fired and President Trump's the president." Well, they got fired for a reason. 1, they were deceitful. 2, they can't carry out the president's agenda. And 3, they were more concerned on going after President Trump than they were about convicting real criminals and protecting the American people. Here's one with Jen Psaki on MSNBC.
Let me ask you, we're all trying to make sense of what this announcement of this new review is going to be and what it's about. You were part of the team that tirelessly prosecuted
tirelessly prosecuted. Let me just say, you see where they run to? MSNBC. That tells you all you need to know.
These insurrectionists, are you worried about being targeted for your work on prosecuting those cases?
Jen, no, maybe I should be, but I know the work that the team did. I know how admirable and meticulous and thorough the team was. I know that we carried out our obligations and our duties to adhere to the rule of law. And so while I think that this mission, this sort of wild goose chase, is one intended to suggest there was something nefarious,
you ruin people's lives. You know what the shame of this is here? I'm going to sound like a sexist. This is a beautiful young lady. She ought to be a conservative because most of these liberals are all nasty, ugly hens, okay? Like the ladies of The View. I don't know what she's doing on the other side. How about that for a sexist comment? But beyond that, you persecuted these people. You went after them with a vengeance for what? Taking an unorganized tour of the Capitol. You got grandmothers and grandfathers that have now felony offenses that the Supreme Court threw many of them out because you went outside the bounds of the law and you twisted and shaped the law to whatever you could use to get these people to be thrown into prison. Some of them sat there for 4 years without a trial. So this woman, she needs to wake up. She really does. This should be a wake-up call. What you did was the complete opposite of the oath you took to the Constitution. You're supposed to seek out justice, not use it as vengeance against your political opponents.
I would point out that the charging decisions using this obstruction statute, 1512C2, was not only supported by grand juries, defendants who pled guilty, courts. Over 20 courts in the District of Columbia upheld this charging.
20 courts in the District of Columbia. That's going to be your big win here. That you had left-wing radical judges in D.C. with left-wing radical juries, a grand jury that was rigged that only heard some of the evidence. Remember, they don't have to present all of it, only some of it. That's your big victory? That's how you say this was great when the Supreme Court of the United States overwhelmingly said, you can't use this obstruction of an official proceeding charge. It's about the Enron case, not voting in the Electoral College.
Decision, the District of Columbia Circuit Court upheld it, and it was only the Supreme Court of the United States that finally narrowed the application of this statute. And I would just note that they said nothing about the impropriety of using this statute to charge defendants. And so while the new U.S. attorney is seemingly going on a wild goose chase to suggest that the prosecutors did something wrong here, we know we didn't, and we know that we did our job.
You suppressed evidence in court over and over again. I don't know what cases she prosecuted, so I can't speak to her individually, but I know stories of so many prosecutors that suppressed evidence, whether it was audio recordings, whether it was video recordings, whether it was surveillance recordings, that would have vindicated many of these defendants. And what did they do? They sunk that evidence because they were so hell-bent on getting convictions.
But you guys are all going to be asked for files and documents and emails, and you just have to figure out how to deal with that, right?
I'm sorry. They work for the taxpayers of the United States. I'm sorry we're bothering you with asking you for documents and details. We want answers. So, yeah, you got to give up the documents and details. I promise you, any ones that she has, she's destroyed.
Correct. Like I said, it seems like somewhat of a wild goose chase. There are, I'm sure, tens of thousands of files and documents and emails. A different news station reported that the preliminary report was due on Friday. And so I look forward to hearing about that, but I just can't imagine any meaningful work could actually be done given the scope of this investigation.
Do you remember when we got the emails from the Lovebirds over the Russian collusion hoax? Those two FBI agents talking about getting Trump, having an insurance plan. Remember the text messages back and forth, how that they've got a plan to get him? Those were FBI agents. So does that mean nothing came out of us getting those text messages? I want to read the emails. I want to see what they were really up to. And I promise you, it is not going to be pretty. Do I dare play more of her? I don't know. I'm sick of hearing from her, truthfully.
Let me ask you about this guy, Ed Martin. I just talked about him in the introduction here, who is now the acting U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. It seems to me a little bit like it's the arsonist in charge of the fire department. There may be better analogies, but you spend so much time working on these cases. How do you see this?
I think it's from a person who worked so hard and so long in the office. I think it's insulting to have a new person come in.
Oh, shut up. I can't. You know what's insulting? You're insulting that you were a federal prosecutor and you went after people with a vengeance and you never focused on Antifa or Black Lives Matter that did real damage to American citizens. How about the damage at the Capitol? We never get a real number on it. You know why? Because it was minimal. They wanted to tell us that they were trying to burn the entire Capitol down. You had a few broken windows, and that was it, folks. People walked around within the ropes, okay? One area, the West Terrace, got a little rough and tumble. That's it. Walking within the ropes. They don't give you a number on the damage at the Capitol because there was very little damage at the Capitol. What about the Black Lives Matter damage? Billions of dollars. The lives lost, billions of dollars worth of physical damage and priceless damage of lives lost, including police officers that were killed. None were killed at the January 6th protest. Not one police officer. Yet the mainstream media will still lie about that to you as well. Shoot, there's another prosecutor. I could play it for you. I guess I will. But before I do that, though, let me tell you about my friends over at Colonial Metals. I'm telling you, gold in the Trump era right now is going to be the place to put your money. The world does not want to understand that President Trump means business. So you've got many of these central banks buying up gold. I mean, this is the place to put your money in times of uncertainty. We just saw President Trump uncovered $50 million is going to be sent to Gaza to buy condoms. You think the money spent is going to stop in Washington anytime soon? And that's a drop in the bucket. Gold is your safe haven. So here's what I want you to do. Get in touch with my friends at Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com/grant. That's freegoldguide.com/grant, 888-458-7356. And learn about gold in the Trump era, why it is an investment that I dub as a portfolio protection maneuver. They can help you take an existing IRA or 401k and transition it to, or even a portion of it, to a 401k that is gold-backed or an IRA that is gold-backed. Just hit the QR code in the top of your screen there. Colonial Metals Group, I know these guys. They're great. I trust them. A lot of gold companies out there that you can choose from. Colonial Metals has been there for our Rumble viewership for a long time. Not just my program, but others as well. Colonial Metals Group, freegoldguide.com. That's freegoldguide.com/grant. 800-458-7356. That's 800-458-7356. Thanks to Colonial Metals and their support of this program. And I love what they're doing to help all of you out there as well. All right. So Mika Brzezinski, she also brings on a J6 prosecutor. See, this is the theme. I don't know why I'm going to torture myself and do this, but I will. And so I'm going to torture all of you. How about that to get you to watch my podcast? I'll torture you. You got to see this. The reason I play this is because I want you to get the insight into their game plan.
Joining us now, two former federal prosecutors who worked on January 6th cases, Jason Manning and Ashley Akers. Jason Manning,
You know what kills me? It's Ashley Akers again. I didn't even know this, and I'm the one who dubbed this down. This is a girl. She's gorgeous. How can you be so dumb and so pretty at the same time? Seriously. She's dumb. She's deceitful. She's anti-American. She went after people with a vengeance. Maybe she's just blind to it all, right? Is she duped by the ding-dong on the left?
Messed up your name. I'll start with you. So first of all, you have some thoughts on these pardons. What do you think the message is that they send, and what do you think the impact will be?
I think the message that they send is a terrible one, and I'd call attention to what Sergeant Gonell of the Capitol Police, an Iraq War veteran who served bravely at the Capitol and who was injured in such an atrocious way that he had to have multiple surgeries to repair his injuries following January 6th.
Look, I have some questions about Sergeant Gonell. One, we know he's a hardcore Democrat, okay? He spoke at the Democrat National Convention. He testified before Congress. He says he's got all these horrible injuries that happened there. I'm not going to say he's a liar, okay? But what I find very odd is I went today to try to find video of him getting beat up and all of his injuries. And I can't find it. Now, every single event this day was documented. Do you think if there was video of a police officer being beaten up with his own equipment to the point of almost death, as Gonell claims, do you think there'd be video of that? I would. I would think I could find it, but I can't. There's hours and hours and hours of video, and I would think he would have found it, and I think they would have plastered it and plastered it all over the media of this, and I don't see any of it. So again, I'm very, very skeptical of the claims made by this officer, especially with his political leanings.
He recently said that the pardons are a mockery and a desecration of the officers who fought to defend our democracy that day. A mockery and a desecration. And I worry about the message that's being sent that if you commit crimes in the president's name, if you commit crimes to further the president's agenda.
Do you see what I'm saying? That's the prosecutor. Commit crimes in the president's name to further his agenda. Go up to the Capitol and peacefully and patriotically let your voices be heard. He didn't say break into the Capitol. He didn't say break any windows. He didn't say wrestle with people with barricades. But notice what I'm telling you here. Yeah, it's not good, right? You can't be wrestling barricades with police officers, and you most certainly shouldn't be breaking windows of the Capitol. But it's not worth being charged with felonies and in prison for 4 years. And many of the punishments and lives lost and jobs lost because of this kind of mentality of this guy in the president's name, as if this was a great insurrection. How many times do I have to say it? You're going to overthrow the most powerful government in the world with a bunch of flagpoles? No weapons, no guns, none. Of course not.
Those crimes are okay. And what message that sends to police officers, and how we'll be able to have a justice system if we don't have police officers who believe that they'll be supported.
You know what? You're a beta male, and I'm glad you're gone. And I'm glad President Trump fired all y'all. You deserve to be fired because you don't represent the Constitution, you don't represent justice, and you certainly don't give the Department of Justice the reputation that it deserves. The Department of Justice right now has a very soiled reputation, but it deserves a better reputation if we can turn it around. Maybe deserves isn't a right word. It deserves a reputation it has now, but I want to see the Department of Justice get to a point where it deserves a decent reputation. That's a better way of phrasing my ultimate wants and desires from all of this. All right, turning now to the immigration situation. ICE raids, roundups. You don't really want to call them sweeps because it's a roundup of targeted individuals. There's a list, and they're going through the list of the worst, the sex offenders, the child rapists, the murderers, the drug dealers, the pimps. These are the people they're going after. And yesterday, 900 people overnight they got. I think we're now pushing 4,000 or 5,000 illegal aliens off the streets in America. You know how safe that, just take 5,000 of them off the street. You know how much safer we're going to be because of this? God bless President Trump. God bless the men and women of ICE and every other federal agency that's going through these targeted enforcement actions and taking these criminals off the streets. I saw this. This is a local news story.
Yeah, so this morning, ICE Baltimore started off.
This is ICE
14
Baltimore.
So the team that you guys were with today, we had our 4 targets initially.
Let me get this.
Yeah, so this morning, ICE Baltimore started off. We have 4 teams out. So the team that you guys were with today, we had our 4 targets initially, where we had our child pornography, our wanted homicide down in El Salvador, our armed robber, and our drug dealer. Now, so far, we've apprehended the man wanted for homicide in El Salvador. We've apprehended the armed robber. We are currently sitting outside and waiting for the conviction for child pornography. We're going to sit on that house for a couple more hours. And the drug dealer gave us a bad address, but we're gonna hunt him down. Like, my officers are the best in the business at this, so we will find him.
So this is what I want to hear. Did you hear him run down the list of criminals they're looking for? Murderers, bruisers, thieves, rapists, child molesters. This is exactly who we want off the street. Anybody that supports the protection of these people, you're insane. But it's all, again, about blind liberal zombieism. Must protect illegal aliens no matter how bad they are. Come on, people.
Other than that, we were able to apprehend 12 other individuals. My other teams that were out today, a combination of ICE, Homeland Security investigations, and enforcement removal operations together, were out arresting numerous cases throughout the state that were all public safety cases. ICE only does targeted enforcement operations. We do not do raids. We do not do dragnets. We do not do sweeps. That is not something ICE has ever done. We do targeted enforcement. But part of that targeted enforcement, if I'm going for an MS-13 gang member and I see someone next to him that has a big 13 on their face, I'm going to start asking that person questions. So in that aspect, what we'll do is we'll ask that person questions, and if we arrest him, we determine they're illegally in the United States, that is what we consider a collateral arrest. So they will come with us also. So that's one of the big differences here is the handcuffs are off, collaterals are on the table. So if someone's here illegally, there's no protection for people just because they didn't happen to be the target that day, right? And when we're looking for these people, it's never 100%. As successful as my team is, you know, we're number one in the United States when it comes to getting sex offenders, and as successful as we are, we don't always bat 100%. But I will say that, you know, these people, just because we didn't get them today, does not mean we won't get them tomorrow. We will constantly be out looking for them, especially these egregious public safety cases. Looking for these guys will never stop.
And that's what we want. It's what we wanted for a long time. This is law enforcement's job. Go find the criminals. Don't wait for them to commit a crime and hope you're driving by. Go find them. Now, in this case, they've already committed the crime. They came across the country, across the border illegally. That's a crime. Now, it's not as strong a crime as I would like it to be. You know, crossing the border is not a felony, no matter what anybody tells you. Felony is a crime that is punishable by up to a year in prison. You cross the border the first time, 6 months in jail. That's the maximum penalty. And there's civil fines to this. I think one is like $50, $250 for crossing the border. Civil. The United States Congress needs to make it a felony to cross the border for the first time illegally. If you try to sneak into America, you're instantly a felon. It would open up the ability for judges to punish these people in a fashion that would ultimately serve as a deterrent. It amazes me that sneaking into the country is not a felony. So here's what I want to make clear to all my left-wing lunatic friends out there that think ICE is running into schools and arresting kids, the sons and daughters of illegal aliens who are in the fields picking strawberries. ICE is prioritizing the worst of the worst first. Isn't that what you'd want them to do? I mean, I'd rather you arrest a murderer than arrest a strawberry picker. If I've got a choice and I can only arrest one at the time, I'd rather you take the worst one off the street because I'm still going to be safer if that one's off the street. But as you go down the line and as you get the worst of the worst out, then it starts to decrease. Now it becomes the shoplifters. Then it becomes the people that are working here illegally. I mean, in the end, if you're here illegally, you should be looking over your shoulder because you have broken the law and you are subject to deportation. So this is not us being cruel. This is people who've made a decision. Many of them, they made a decision taking into account, okay, I could get deported, but I'm going to make my life for my family better. So I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to sneak into America, get a job, send money home, and my family's life back home is going to be better. Okay, I can understand why you took that risk, but I want to make it easier for those good people who just want to come here and work. I want to make it easier for them to get here. That can't happen until we shut the border down, though, because as long as you keep having people sneaking in, it's just going to become an absolute revolving door. So, and that's the last thing we want is a total revolving door. This is a left-wing lawyer who got a lot of criticism from conservatives, but in some respects, she raises a decent point, and back to the point I was making about strengthening the laws. In some respects, she's right here, though she's underplaying and skewing what reality is. Of course, she's a liberal. Watch this.
Undocumented immigrants are not criminals. There is a difference between criminal and civil law. And when you are here without documentation, you are committing a civil violation, not a crime.
No, but the moment you crossed into the country is a crime, albeit not a felony. And it is punishable by a prison sentence. So civil penalties do not include prison. This one does. So she's wrong on that. Now, the civil penalty is if you don't have documentation and you haven't caught them for coming in illegally. And I know there's a gray area there. That could be considered civil, and that's where the civil fines do come in. I agree we need to close that loophole down.
The term illegal immigrant is inaccurate legally and factually because a person cannot be illegal. The term illegal is akin to an action that violates a criminal statute. And yes, entering the country illegally is a crime, but a good portion of undocumented immigrants...
So you see how she contradicts herself there. See, it is a crime, not a civil penalty. It is a crime.
Legally. And losing documentation does not make you a criminal, as I explained before. So when you hear me using the term undocumented instead of illegal, it's because I have a brain and I know how to read.
No, it's because you're talking about a certain set of illegals which claim they lost their documents, which most of the time that's a big giant lie, and they have not lost their documents. They never had documents, which makes them, yes, undocumented, but it also makes them here illegally. The reality is we need to close the loophole. Just make it a felony to come into the country the first time. You make that a felony, everything is going to change. But you watch the mainstream media go crazy over all of this. And luckily, the president has people like Stephen Miller, who is fabulous at talking about these immigrations and turning the argument around on these anchors. He does a great job.
A question because one of the reasons that President Trump got elected, according to President Trump in an interview, I think it was with Kristen Welker of NBC, was because of grocery prices. Not the only reason, but a reason, high prices, inflation, especially at the grocery. The Department of Agriculture says that between 2020 and 2022, 42% of crop workers were undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, as you know, these migrants do jobs many Americans do not want to do. So how does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in this country legally doesn't end up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, but also don't want to see even more higher prices in groceries?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake, you're just asking the question, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor. I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden flights. Mm-hmm. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 legal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this.
We don't have 30
minutes. Audience.
I don't have a 30. I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you
explaining
can come back
to you
and we
your
can talk
audience.
about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They are in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. But there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws, and as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
So
that guy's great. I mean, talk about a knockout punch. Talk about a pitting 1, 2, 3 winner, Stephen Miller. My Lord. You know, he's such a clown, that anchor over at CNN, Jake Tapper. He's a beta male. He's drank the left-wing Kool-Aid. And to me, it is literally enough is enough, right? I wish it was him and Acosta leaving CNN. Hey, folks, my friends over at Patriot Mobile, they got a deal for you. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. That's where I want you to go. PatriotMobile.com/Grant. I have a Patriot Mobile phone. This is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Switching is so easy. 100% U.S.-based customer service. The other cell phone companies can't claim that. They answer the phone when you call right away. You can go on the website. You can make the change there, patriotmobile.com/Grant, or call them at 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month service. And you'll know that a portion of the proceeds that they take in from your mobile phone service is going to fund conservative causes. Is going to fund making sure that we have a Second Amendment, making sure that we have a First Amendment, making sure that outlets like Stinchfield and other conservative voices can continue to spread the message. This is all thanks to Patriot Mobile. So when I tell you it's my official communications provider for Stinchfield's Army, I mean it. So get yourself a Patriot Mobile phone, patriotmobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT. Don't forget to use the promo code GRANT. And, of course, tell them that Grant Stinchfield sent you. Patriot Mobile, folks. I'm telling you, get it done. And I love the leadership of Patriot Mobile because they are bold. Very, very bold. All right. With that, Mayor Johnson, okay? This is him. He's made a big deal out of protecting illegals in his city. And he got confronted at a news conference when he's saying, you know, we're not cooperating with ICE.
Tom Holman showed up in Chicago and within 24 hours found a convicted sex offender who has been living in our city since 2009, flouting the sex offender registry. If he can do this, why can't you?
Because that's their job. That is their job. The federal government
job's not to keep
has
the
a
people of Chicago
responsibility
safe.
to make sure that individuals who are undocumented, who have been charged with, convicted of a crime, it is the federal government's responsibility to do their part and uphold the law. Our local police department, along with our public health department, along with our other sister agencies, are working to build a better, stronger, safer Chicago. And as we've stated repeatedly, those critical investments, you continue to see the results of those investments as violent crime continues to fall in Chicago.
So it's the federal government's job in some respect, yes, but it's also the job of Chicago and the leaders and the police to keep their citizens safe. And that's what that reporter was getting at when I asked him that. Now, let me just freeze frame this
Tom
for
Holman.
you, okay? There's a police officer standing by him. I imagine it's probably the police chief, some top brass guy. Why is he standing there? If you're a police officer in Chicago and you're supporting this behavior of Mayor Johnson, you are violating your oath to the Constitution to uphold the laws of the Constitution, and you violated your promise to American citizens that you'd keep them safe, the people of Chicago to keep them safe. Those police officers standing behind Mayor Johnson should be ashamed of themselves. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement, but I'm not a supporter of law enforcement that supports the destruction of their own city at the hands of criminals who are acting in a violent manner that are scaring everyone to death. Not only scaring them, but killing them. So those cops ought to walk out and make a statement. I promise you, if you brought Mayor Johnson into a meeting at a local precinct in Chicago, they turn their backs on him like they do in New York City. So, in the end, Mayor Johnson, he needs to go. And these cities need to wake up. There's no doubt in my mind about that. All right, before I let you go, folks, the Wellness Company. Do you have one of these kits? Please tell me you do. It's about making sure your family is safe. I'm not kidding around with you when I tell you that 8 prescription medications in here could save a life. There's including ivermectin in here, which more and more is being like the miracle drug for everything. Ivermectin in here, still hard to get in many cities. You got amoxicillin, cured my strep throat a few months ago, as I've told you about before. Have it on hand. Just prep yourself. twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. And make sure you and your family are protected. You need prescription medications to go along with the food, water, power, ammunition, all things that keeps a family safe. Prescription medications, too. All right, that's going to do it for us, folks. GrantStinchfield.com, Stinchfield 1776. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight. I'm going to talk about California a little bit. They're telling people they can get back in their homes, the victims of the wildfire, if they wear, you ready for this? Masks. Yes, masks. They're going to mandate that you have personal protection equipment, PPE, on before you can go into your house. Can you just let people go do their thing? Well, we're going to have a live report from California on the Real America's Voice show tonight. We'll cover all the RFK Jr. hearings as well. Some fireworks already started on that front. Will be fascinating to watch unfold. 2 hearings for RFK Jr. So with that, Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you. We will see you back here tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. God bless you.